I believe the greatest college football coach of all time has just sat down with Pat. Yeah, there you are.
Ladies and gentlemen, the GOAT in the toughest environment in the SEC. His words, not mine. Ladies and gentlemen, Coach Nick Saban.
Yeah, Coach.
Coach, obviously the story of you talking about Vandy a couple years back on this particular program took on a life of its own because what Vandy would go on to become and what they are now. $130 million renovation of this brand new stadium they opened up in August. How does it feel to be here and understanding that this Vandy football team is for real and also feels like they're invested for the future down here, which is abnormal for the SEC, obviously?
Yeah, well, there's no question about it. I mean, that wasn't there when the last time I was here. This wasn't here. The basketball arena wasn't there. So they have made a commitment. And it's working, and I think it's good for the league. And
a lot of people jumping on their bandwagon here. Mizzou also, very good football team. Game day here for Vandy, Mizzou, seemingly very improbable. But with the NIL and transfer portal, all these teams have a chance to make big-time leaps in their talent level, especially if they have supportive, kind of boosters. What have you seen from Vandy? What have you seen from Mizzou? And what are your thoughts on that as a whole?
Yeah, well, I think that the culture of college football now relative to no guardrails gives places like this the opportunity, if they want to make a commitment, which they did here, not only in the facilities, but they have a competitive, collective where they have a chance to get some of these players in. They made some academic adjustments where they can get some transfers in that are freshmen, sophomores, or graduates. So they've done the things that they needed to do to have a competitive program, and it's paid off for them. And, I still say this all the time. This is a great academic institution, but the window that people look at this institution is really going to be a lot through the athletic program, and there's no way that they can get more exposure than having game day here and playing in a big game like they did last week against LSU, and they're going to do this week against Missouri.
Yeah, Diego Pavia feels like a guy who's ready for the moment. Same with Coach Lee. Good for them. Happy for them. You talked about how, you got to be able to live up to the hype, Can't be a flash in the pan. They're the faces of kind of creating a whole new culture overnight alongside Indiana as well. What is different, you think, between those two particular programs as opposed to people that have used NIL and been good and then got bad? Why do you think these two have been kind of sustainable here for the first couple of years?
Well, I think that, first of all, Kirk Cignetti's done a really good job of, everybody uses the term rat poison, but he's done a good job of controlling the spotlight on his team and keeping his guys focused. The more distractions you have, the more fragile psychologically your people become in terms of their ability to sustain success. Consistency in performance defines success to me, not just having one successful game or season or whatever. And he's done a really good job of that. I think this is still the question mark for Vanderbilt. Can they deal with the flash? Can they deal with the success? I saw signs at Alabama when they played a couple weeks ago down there, you were there, where that wasn't the case. So can they do that? Did they learn their lesson there? And can they finish this season strong? Which, if they do, they're going to have a chance possibly to get in a playoff.
Boys, Coach was so pissed that Diego was practicing victory formation at warm-up. So pissed. It was.
That is a weird thing to practice in warm-ups, isn't it?
You can understand that.
Look at it right now. He's shaking his head. He's about to puke.
Yeah, what's that about, Coach?
I love Diego, but that would have been a catastrophic player-coach relationship moment before the game. I mean, I never wanted our players to ever do anything. I didn't even let them talk to the other team. I never wanted them to do anything that was going to affect the other team's motivation to beat us. So don't ever say anything. Don't ever give anybody a reason. They got enough reason to want to beat us. Don't give them any more.
Yeah, everybody wants Bama, brother. And the reason is because the way you were able to kind of psychologically put your boys into positions to success for so damn long. And everybody does it differently. Diego has certainly captured the entire world by storm. And us talking to him last week, he seems like he is just continuing to mature every single week and get used to it. Absolute dog, though.
He is that, man.
He is an absolute dog. I'm very appreciative of him in college football. Tone has a question for you back in the Thunderdome.
Yeah, Coach, there are a lot of job openings already this year, and there's a lot of pros and cons to every single job opening. If you are a coach that is, being lured in by these schools, what do you look for? What is most important to coaches when they go to these schools? Is it NIL? Is it recruiting base? Is it the AD and president and support of the school? Is it, facilities? There's so much that goes into these coaching. Or is it where you're from? Is it your alma mater? Stuff like that. What do these coaches look and what do they value most when they're looking at potentially going to a new school that's offering them?
Well, where you're from has nothing to do with it, but all of the other things that you mentioned absolutely do. And I think that the most important thing when you take a job is how do you establish the ground rules going in? All right, you got all these people giving money so that you can pay players, but does that come with them having some influence on what happens in the program and how you coach your team and how you coach the players and all that? So, to me, when I took a job, I said, okay, this is how it's going to be. I'm not listening to the board of trustees. They're not telling me who to recruit. They're not telling me who to play. I mean, I'm not. So understand that going in and go tell them before I take the job because I'm not listening to that bullshit. All right. So that was that because I didn't want to have to deal with that. Yeah. So you need to set the ground rules for all those things. What is name, image, and likeness going to be like here? How is our administration going to be involved? What's the academic circumstance that you're going to support so that we don't have issues when it comes to academics? Facilities are important. They're not as important as they used to be because you could have the nicest facilities in the world, but if you don't have any money to pay the players, they're not coming. All right? So all those things are factors, but I think establishing the ground rules before you get there is the most important thing.
Can't be house poor, huh? You're saying the facilities used to matter, but now if we're going to do $45 million into facilities or $35 million into the players, let's go ahead and feed these players.
Feed the players.
If we can do both.
Feed the beast.
Yeah, let's certainly do that. Feed the stud, brother. Yeah. That isn't a bad strategy, actually, across any of the parties. You said being from somewhere maybe shouldn't factor in as much as it has. Clark, here he is Vandy guy, and there's a lot of quotes of him talking about becoming the #1 program in the country. I think Kenny Dillingham also, he's very proud to be from the Valley over there at Arizona State. Some of these jobs, though, are about to make some pretty crazy offers, right? Wouldn't you think? Florida, Penn State, there's obviously huge jobs on the horizon that are going to be available. Virginia Tech just said they're putting in $229 million into it. Feels like there's going to be a lot of big-time numbers for some of these coaches. Do you agree with that as well?
I absolutely agree with that. I think there'll be some huge numbers, but I also think that some of the guys that you mentioned, Clark being here, Kenny being at Arizona State, they probably understood how to set the ground rules and what the place needed to do because they had previous experience here, which probably helped them set the table for what they needed to do in the future.
Got it.
My point was, just because you're from someplace doesn't mean it's going to help you win. But I think if you have knowledge and they're willing to make a commitment to doing those things, then you got a chance.
Yeah, there's a man standing right over there. We're talking about how much money these coaches are going to get. Somebody else is going to be getting a little bit of cash off all these deals, too. Big Deluxe is over there wearing his white khakis. We're in his town right now. He lives in one of these penthouses. I don't know which one it is, but there's going to be a new one on the way with this new job opening. Penn State and Florida. Jeez Louise. There's going to be a lot of money in Jimmy Sexton's pockets in about a week.
I want to stay retired. And I do not want him anywhere near Miss Terry. Because when she hears some of these numbers, she gets interested. And I am interested.
That was last week. I believe that was last week whenever the question in the grab bag was, who's going to be the next coach of Penn State? And it was just so easy because everybody on the internet had put you there. Penn Staters were like, Penn State needs to go to Nick Saban and say any number that he wants. So then we bring in, obviously, Miss Terry, the boss, and she goes, I haven't heard a number yet. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. That just made athletic directors out there go, okay, ho. That wasn't a complete no there. That was we could kind of work with this at this stage. Okay?
No way.
All right.
I have so much fun working with you.
Years.
Why would I go do that?
Okay. I mean, you would potentially do that because maybe one of these places has a never-ending supply of money, and boy, they would like the I think there's a chance that that's on the horizon. Let's continue to talk a little bit more about ball. AJ has a question for you, Coach.
Yeah, Coach, there's a lot of good games this weekend. One, I think, maybe flying under the radar. Michigan traveling to Michigan State. I know you coached at Michigan State for a while. What is that rivalry like? I know I've seen the clips of guys coming out pregame and, turfing up the logo, all that kind of stuff. How do you think that goes, and what was it like being in the middle of that?
Well, I think these rivalry games sometimes have a little imbalance in terms of what it means to one school versus another. And let me explain. The Michigan-Ohio State game probably for the Michigan players is huge. The Michigan State-Michigan game for the Michigan State players is the huge game because, they're sort of not the most talked about school in the state, so they got a lot to prove. Some of them probably would have liked to have gone to school at Michigan. They ended up at Michigan State. So there's a lot for them to try to prove in a game like this. But I do think, and I was very impressed with the way Michigan played last week against Washington on both sides of the ball. So, and Michigan State struggled of late. But I tell you, there's been some huge upsets in this series in the past, and it's always an interesting game.
Talk about that. One side views the rivalry a little bit bigger than the other side. It's natural, especially with how many rivalries there are in college ball. But I think you've talked about your Alabama team. There being a couple games that maybe it's harder to get your boys to believe that this is a rivalry than maybe some other games. And the other team is the biggest game of their season. How do you kind of adjust that with your squad?
Yeah, well, that was always a little bit of an issue as time went on, at Alabama, because it's generational with the Alabama folks, but a lot of people see Tennessee as the big rivalry at Alabama. This generation sees Auburn that way. And then LSU became such a big rivalry game because they were always so good and we were always pretty good. And that game had such significance in terms of we played late in the season and whoever won was going to win the SEC or whatever. So it became harder and harder and harder when you have multiple, rivalry games to get the players to focus on all of them the way you'd like for them to, knowing that the other team, like Auburn, was always going to be ready to play us.
Yeah.
So, especially when we played there. So,
everybody wanted Bama, brother.
Everybody.
Still do.
Yeah, still. There are still chanting we want Bama because of what you were running there. At what point did you realize, we are the mountain, basically? Is that after your fifth national? When?
No.
What year? Is it the fourth? The third? When do you realize, we are the mountain that literally everybody is
I think when we won in 9, 11, and 12. When we won 3 out of 4 years. And the 10 team might have been better than the other teams, and they didn't get in the playoffs because we lost 3 games. We had such complacency. But I think from that time on, it was like,
you were just disgusted with that.
We were going to get everybody's best game.
Yeah, you certainly were.
But if you could get the other team to run their mouth, that was helpful in motivating your team.
Yeah, we talked about the Vandy situation here.
No doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you certainly need that. I couldn't even imagine just trying to figure out how do I keep the boys motivated when we are supposed to steamroll everybody, and everybody is looking up at us. Because any given Saturday, college football much more than the NFL, any team can get any team, especially now with kind of the parity with NIL. Couple good players and a couple good positions. Wrong Saturday, which tomorrow could be, actually. Let's pivot away from that, and let's talk a little bit about the story that's kind of captivating all of sports right now. Yeah. You as a coach, obviously, with college, this is a big part of it. Go ahead, Ty.
Yeah, Coach, the NCAA recently okayed all 3 divisions to have their athletes and coaches be able to bet on professional games. And I think, immediately people kind of think, well, it's a slippery slope. These kids know a lot of kids at other schools, and not saying that the integrity of the game will be compromised, but you could see how it starts as, hey, you're only supposed to bet on professional sports, and then eventually that kind of seeps into college. As a coach, how would you address this whole situation with not only your players, your staff, and ultimately, do you see this being like a very, very slippery slope for college athletics as a whole and kind of ripe for a scandal?
Yeah, I think there's no question about it. And, Pat and I were talking about this before, but anytime that you have something that is legal, that is against the rules in your sport. So gambling is legalized, but yet from an NCAA standpoint, players can't gamble. On college games now. But that becomes the most difficult circumstance to try to control as a coach. And we went to great lengths. I talked about it, but I had the FBI guy come in and tell them how they could get caught and how they would get technically how they could, follow the gambling line and all that, especially if they did it on their phone. And then I had Michael Franzese is the only mafia boss that they didn't kill when he was in jail, and then he got hired to go speak everywhere.
Oh yeah, we know Francis.
Yeah, I would bring him in, and he would scare the players to death. Like, you might get shot someday if you do the wrong thing. So he would just scare them about how bad it was to get involved with people in gambling, and how they could force you to do things you really didn't want to do. So we did a lot of things to try to make the players aware that this could be a huge problem for them and how it could affect them and their career, which, to what we were talking about before, and this is no different, I became very much a guy that talked less about team and more about individuals, thinking that, players are selfish, they're self-absorbed, and they're ambitious. So how do I take advantage of that? And I would talk to them about all this behavioral stuff that could help them and enhance their value, and all the behavioral stuff that actually could kill them. And this was one of those things. But they took that part of it better when you made it about them and how it would affect them rather than just talking about the team.
Yeah, personal stuff. Scared Straight seemingly has worked for a long time. I wish they would do another kind of round of that with actual prisoners and bad kids. That always created good content. Francis came and talked to us as well. Did you know about his gasoline scheme?
Oh, yeah. That was brilliant.
Unbelievable.
Brilliant.
Unbelievable.
Brilliant. And for somebody that used to pump gas, I was trying to figure, how could I figure this out?
He was scraping just pennies off of every single gallon. And by the time they were about to catch him, he was at another place. They were already gone. He was like, it was a great loophole. We're talking helicopters into the city. This guy's got Ferraris, Lambos. Probably would have bought them from you if this time was happening. Yeah, we know Francis pretty good. Francis has been in a little bit of internet beef, with other mob bosses in the past. But anytime you can kind of hear from the source about what the possible outcomes are, that's obviously a little something that can maybe make you act a little certain way. That's why I think the FBI and I think even the NBA and all the leagues are probably going to want really heavy punishments for this. We got to set a precedent like, hey, this ain't good. Not just for the NBA. This is for all sports right now. And in the world that we're in right now. Like, this is a huge deal. We can't give up the integrity of the sports because then everything's gone. Sports are gone. Leagues are gone. Sports gambling. Everything is gone if the integrity of the game starts getting questioned.
That's
can't
right.
have it.
I agree 100%. You are so right.
I want to let you know, I played a lot of those poker games. We need cash. We need cash not to be snooping around. Okay, I don't know if he's in Pittsburgh in the early 2000s, but cash, I hope you just kind of missed that. The poker game one was crazy.
I mean, I can't even figure that out. How could you cheat in a poker game? I know how you can deal the cards off the bottom and all that. But using AI, is that how they did it?
So we had Matt Berkey on, who's a professional poker player, in the first hour because the internet was starting to run with a lot of different. They were saying like there was an X-ray machine in the table underneath the felt and everything. It wasn't that. I think there was a potential camera that was maybe on the table that was maybe showcasing what a card was coming, which is obviously big for Hold'em because there's a turn and a river coming. So that if that was happening, then that would mean the dealer was on the take as well, because then the dealer would be showing the cards. Then there's also potential paint that they put on the outside of the decks if they were able to get the decks in there, and if you have contact lenses, you can see the top of the deck. So I don't think they had X-rays, but I think they were using other things to certainly cheat. But yeah, that is like going to that extent to screw people over is obviously disgusting.
No, it is.
When it comes to cards,
we have games so people can enjoy games, and it's not worth it to not play by the rules because that's what makes the competition fair, and the honesty that goes into it not only builds character, but it makes you feel good about earning the success that you had doing it the right way.
Agreed. AJ, did you hear that? Maybe you should think about that when you play euchre, you cheating piece of trash.
Never use any technology, Coach. Never use any technology. I'm a great teammate. I can communicate with my teammate when I'm playing euchre. You guys, just because you're mute.
Okay, you're not supposed to do that.
You almost got to be from Ohio to play euchre. We played euchre when I was at Kent State. I never heard of it in West Virginia.
Hold on. In Pittsburgh, I never heard of it either. And then I get out to Indiana, I play. Great game. Do you still play or no?
No, not lately.
Okay, well, if you play and you and Miss Terry play, do not play AJ. He cheats. This guy's a cheater.
Not even close.
Like a son of a bitch.
Not even close, Coach.
Yeah, he does. He cheats like
Evan Foxy knows my partner.
AJ's
a great partner. That's all I'll say.
Thank you, Foxy.
Yeah, you guys are dealing weird and talking loud.
Look at my hands. You think I could deal weird with my fingers and my hands? But I cannot deal weird. I wish I could cheat on dealing. I would deal from the bottom if someone would teach me.
Now, on that note, my wife also is a bender of the rules when it comes to cards. I play by the rules, okay? Now, do I know the game better than you? Potentially. Do I know a rule that you don't know that exists? Potentially. We can Google it if you'd like to. But, boy, it is great whenever you win and beat the cheaters like A.J. Hawk, Coach, to everything you're saying. A little fulfillment, a little gratification, a little, hey, this is how the game's supposed to be played. The card gods have blessed me.
Right.
And now, Chauncey's going to find out the card gods will certainly affect you. We're waiting on it to happen to A.J. Hawk and Euchre. Yeah. That is what we are waiting for that to happen.
That surprises me. I always held AJ in high esteem.
Don't.
Me too.
Really.
You see how a little bit of misinformation can really skew your
Gumpy,
your
when you
opinion.
put this Gumpy, when you put this clip out, make sure you tag the FBI.
Yes.
Okay?
Cash.
Yes, Cash Patel.
Cash Patel on it.
A.J. Hawk is cheating in Euchre.
Arrest
And,
this piece of shit.
Get him out of here. Get him out of here. Now, there's some stories coming out about the old teams that you have. I assume it's nice to go take a trip down memory lane. Connor has a question for you, Coach.
Yeah, Coach, one of your Heisman winners, Devonta Smith, was on the Closed on Sundays show with Pat Surtain and Terrion Arnold. And he basically told a story about how when it was Jerry Jeudy, one of our favorite players across the board, Devonta Smith, Jalen Waddle, and Henry Ruggs, he actually told a story about how you basically went up to either the players or the OC at the time, and he talked about how, hey, you would tell them, hey, you guys got to stop scoring so quick because you're catching one ball, you're running 80 yards, scoring a touchdown, and then basically our defense is dying because they just played their asses off, and now they got to go back out on the field. How many times did that happen to you where your team was that good, where you had to basically tell the players, hey, I preach, stay locked in and play as hard as you can, but right now I can't have you play as hard as you can because if you do, the other side of the ball is screwed. Did that happen often? And when the OCs did get the word from you, not the negotiation, the ass chewing, I'm assuming just basically, hey, you better run the ball or your ass is out of here, Lane Kiffin. What was that kind of like when your teams were that dominant?
No, I loved it when we had those kind of skill guys that could score fast and make big plays. But there is a strategic side to all that because, understand we came from run the ball, play good defense. Our defense was probably in the top 5 for the first 5 or 6 years. We ran the ball. Derrick Henry had some great backs and all that. We shrunk the game, played good defense. Well, when we changed over to take advantage of the rules, RPOs, throwing the ball behind the line of scrimmage, blocking downfield, all those things, when Lane came and hired Lane with the idea that we were going to change because we needed to score more points. Well, when you go no huddle and you score more points, you play more plays on defense. So that was a psychological change for our whole team, all right, that we were going to win the game 44-40 sometimes, not 19-6. All right, so and it was also a little bit of a change for even me that sometimes when the defense got tired and we scored fast on offense, that they had to go right back out there. There were times strategically we needed to just keep the ball a little bit on offense. But I'll take the great players and the speed, and those 4 guys were great players, and they had great speed, and we could score fast. And I might have tried to get them to score a little slower, but I'd rather have that issue than have the other issue and not have any speed and not be able to score.
Yeah, I would assume it'd be nice to have to put a governor on your offense. Hey, we got to slow this down a little bit. We got to at least have 4 plays before we score a touchdown, as opposed to having a team that can't score.
Well, the 2019 team had all those guys on it when Tua got hurt. That may have been one of the best teams that we ever had, and when Tua got hurt, we lost to Auburn with Mac playing when he probably wasn't quite ready, to play. But that was one of the best teams we ever had, and they never even got in the playoffs.
Yeah, that's the thing about college ball. You got to get lucky in a lot of different ways. I'm lucky that I get a chance to sit next to you. The boys and I are lucky that we get a chance to chat with you. And how do you feel about the vibe? I'll tell you what. I'm not going to say it.
Say it.
Tell them. Might as well.
Hasn't been a lot of buzz around campus.
Whoa! No! What? I thought it was going the other way.
No, I saw the kickers kicking, and I thought it was what it was going to be. And maybe I'm just on a part of the I was on a part of the campus that doesn't have humans. Okay, I'm going through. There was nothing. I didn't. Gumpy, please, you're with me.
Yeah, there's nothing.
Yeah, there was.
What?
No, we might have been in the wrong parts. I'm gonna search for it. I'm gonna look for it. I'm gonna certainly look for it. Yeah, I think so. Vandy's real
down
school,
on Broadway?
Right?
Yeah, it is. I was going to ask the question, is it possible that they were in class?
Listen,
Which you
don't
may
ask
have not
stupid
done at West
questions.
Virginia.
Yeah, don't ask dumb questions, Coach. Jeez, there is a chance they were in class. So I gotta. You're right. I didn't even think about that. That's part of the problem. That's part of the problem. I apologize, Vandy. I can't wait to experience tomorrow. I've heard it's going to be electrifying. Coach, you're the best, ladies and gentlemen. The GOAT, Coach Saban.
Yeah.
Thank you.